So this is the interface of JupyterLab. Let me zoom in. Sorry. So this is the interface of JupyterLab, where you can have different, you can use your folder directory, your files, and on your right side, you have the notebook or the Jupyter notebook. If I open a new tab here, I have different other options. For example, down below, I see the terminal, for example. I can also create text files. I can also create a markdown file. And as you see on my left side, these new documents are appearing, except for the terminal, of course. And here also, Python script, especially for kind of developing data applications. But let me close all of them. And if you notice here, this is my my configuration. I have here different kernels which belong to different virtual environments. So I will show you how to do this. But first, the first requirement for this is to have installed already Conda, your package manager, and also to have installed JupyterLab in your global environment or your base environment, and also to have already checked the previous video about creating virtual environments. So one way to, one inefficient way, in my opinion, is where you can create a new environment, of course, and you can install a version of JupyterLab or a Jupyter notebook inside this environment. For example, let's say that I want to create my specific project folder or directory. Make dir. Let's Hola Mundo, just as a random name, and then get me Hola Mundo, and I will create here an environment. Conda create. Let me put this more into center of the screen. Conda create. I will use a prefix method. I showed you in the previous video that you have different methods to achieve this, to create virtual environments. And this is creating the virtual environment. Okay, so I want to activate this environment. I will install Python, for example, Conda, install Python. Let's use version 3.12. Let's 3.12, sorry. And also I can put additionally, JupyterLab, but let's do it step by step. I install Python first. Yes. Okay, so now I check Python, for example. Python version. Okay, now I can install JupyterLab. This is the latest version of Python. So Conda install JupyterLab. Okay, I can use also pandas as a library. You can install many things in the same line. Okay, because this terminal application is giving me like previous commands. So just JupyterLab is enough. I mean, automatically this is, I didn't use the flag of Conda Forge because Miniforge is using as a default the Conda Forge channel. Okay, so yes. Waiting for JupyterLab to be installed. Okay, that's it. So now I can activate my environment. Sorry, I can launch JupyterLab now from this environment. It will take a while at the beginning. Okay. So this is my specific environment here. You see here that I have specific kernels or different other projects. I have here different other kernels or environments here, but I don't have for this one. What I did is to install JupyterLab in my own environment. This is the environment, my folder. For example, let me show you. So for example, here I have my environment, Hola Mundo. This is my project folder. I open it and JupyterLab is here in this environment installed already. However, the downside of this is that for every virtual environment you're creating, for every project you're creating, you don't want to install JupyterLab every time. So this is not very practical. So the best thing is to have installed JupyterLab in your global environment and then install specific kernels associated with your virtual environments. So let's see how to do this. So let's create another environment, another folder, for example. Make there my first code. So in this case, I need to get to my first code, okay, and then conda create the prefix option. But if you prefer, you can create directly here, conda create with the flag n name or n, and then you can create the name of your environment. So these are the options that we learned in the past video about virtual environments. So, but I like the prefix option. So my first code. So conda create prefix and then I can put here Python, for example, this one here, 3.10, for example. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm creating the environment, but also I'm installing Python at the same time. Okay. Let's wait for that a bit. Okay, yes. So now let's activate the environment. Activate. Okay, so now I am in my environment. I don't want to install JupyterLab. I want to install only the kernel, which is just the association between my environment and the JupyterLab that is installed globally. So let me show you how to install it. So let's put this conda install ipykernel. Okay. Let's say yes. So after installing the ipykernel in your environment, let's associate this ipykernel with JupyterLab in the base environment. Okay, how to do this is Python ipykernel install name. We can put here the name. This name will appear in the directory of in the folder of your kernel in your device. For example, I can put here my first code. I can put here my first. I can put here any name, and then the display name on my kernel. I can put here my first code just as the name of the environment. Okay, so let's see what happens. So now you can see that I have associated my kernel, my ipykernel, to the JupyterLab. So now, for example, I can deactivate my environment. Sorry, conda deactivate. And then let's go to the base environment. So if I put Jupyter kernel spec list, I see the where my kernels are in my own device. So my first code here is the name of the folder, the directory in my own device, and which is the one that we specify here in name. And then my first code is the name of the kernel that we will see on JupyterLab. So for example, I will show you, for example, here in macOS, I can go to my library here, so I can follow this directory, Jupyter, library Jupyter, and then I can see all my kernels. You can see my first code again. You see the name here. So this is the installation. Okay. So for example, if I open this with a text editor, you can see that this is the environment here. Okay. If you used and the other way of creating the virtual environment, it will look different. It will appear, for example, here miniforge or miniconda, and then environment, and then the name of the environment. So yeah, this is the display name, etc. So let's close this, and then let's see how it appears in JupyterLab. So I launch JupyterLab from my terminal, and let's see. So yeah, you can see that now I have this one here, my first code. This is the kernel that I'm using. So for example, I'm selecting this one here. I can select other kernels here. For example, in general, I can select this one and say, for example, import. In this kernel, I have already installed pandas, so it will appear without a problem. But for example, if I change the kernel to the one that I just created, which is my first code, select, and then I import pandas, and then I will have an error. Why? Because pandas is not installed in my kernel, in my environment. So this is how you have your kernel. So the lesson here is that you don't have to install JupyterLab for each of your environment. You install specific kernels associated with your environment. So in other words, you install just ipykernells or Jupyter kernels in your environments, and then you associate these kernels to the JupyterLab in the base environment. So again, you can see the one that we created here. Okay. So now you can create other virtual environments with specific kernels, and all of them will appear over here. Okay. So that's it, and see you in the next video.